What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to the channel. I figured I'll start doing these chats a little more often. I say that, and I haven't had one in a week or two, but we're gonna start getting a few more here. And today, we'll start with today. We've got Lee Matthew Goldberg here to talk about some of his books. Lee, how are we doing today?
I'm doing great. I'm in New York, and it looks like it's like 60 degrees outside for the first time in a long time. So I couldn't be happier. And thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I feel like the weather is starting to kind of get a little bit better. I know daylight savings time's coming up, and it's going to be like 70 here all week in Alabama. So
nice.
Yeah. I told my wife, I was like, we've definitely got to start hitting the lake up. I've been in the house for like, I guess a year now. It's almost been an exact year since
pretty much. Yeah.
Started working from home, and my boss was like, yeah, do what you got to do. So it feels weird to be able to get out and about again.
Yeah, I'm ready to start. Like, I just got my vaccine 2 days ago. I'm ready to start
life
again. Yeah, although just the first dose. So
right. Hey, you're a step ahead of me. So I don't know when we're gonna get allowed it. So, which I think my wife will beat me to it because she's an educator. So
okay, cool.
Yeah. So, let's kind of start a little bit about you. You're fairly new to me. I know, your publicist reached out to me a little while back to kind of hype up your new book. But tell me about yourself, tell me about growing up, and then kind of how you got into writing.
Sure. I've basically always been a writer. I used to write books when I was like a little kid about my dog getting into like crazy adventures. So it's something I've always wanted to do. And then my first book came out in 2015. And I've pretty much written thrillers. But my last thriller, The Ancestor, like flirted with sci-fi a little bit. It's about a man who believes he's frozen in time since the Gold Rush era. And so that kind of led me to my new book, Orange City, which is more pure sci-fi. And yeah, I live in New York City, and I write most days under a tree in Central Park. And that's my life.
There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, you always have to have pretty good scenery to kind of get the juices flowing.
Yeah, I'm excited that it's not a snow ground and I could do it again.
Yeah. So do you have you been able to find yourself doing that, with the pandemic? I mean, I know, the whole like getting out and about, getting in public's been kind of iffy, but I assume you'd be able to, wearing a mask, you'd be able to go to the park.
Yeah, actually, Central Park, and I mean, we got hit so hard at the beginning of the pandemic in New York. So a year ago, really today, and for the next couple months, a year ago was when it was the worst. So Central Park was one of the first like outings that I had because it seemed the safest. You were the least, like on top of people. So I just started going there and writing again, and that was kind of my first instance of reemerging in the world. So it was great. And I mean, I live in Midtown, so it was a way of kind of getting away from all the, the crowds and the people.
Yeah. I kind of wish like I had like a big park area to go to. I mean, like what we've got around here, we've just got, small little like soccer fields and baseball fields and stuff.
Yeah.
Like we don't have just like an open area with benches and a little pond or a lake or anything. It's kind of sad. I feel like I could get some writing done if I actually like went out and did that, but maybe I'm just going to take the extra 10-15 minutes to drive down to the lake one day.
Right. I mean, water's good too. Water is just as good as a park. I mean, I find like if I'm in nature and then I'm surrounded by people, but I'm not in a coffee shop where like I'm hearing people. So it's kind of the perfect mix of me feeling like I'm somewhat social during the day, but I don't have to be social. So yeah, it works great for me. I'm going to head there later today because it's nice.
Now that the weather is actually beautiful, why not? Yeah, I've always been interested, how people can write in coffee shops because you always see the pictures of like you got your MacBook out, you got your headphones on and a cup of coffee, but I'm like, you don't have to necessarily have headphones on if you aren't in a coffee shop because there are other places where it's more quiet, but I don't know. Maybe it's just the whole, like, this is a routine thing. I get my coffee and I start writing, but I don't know. Something about being among the hustle and bustle of the day people going in and out, I just get so distracted.
Yeah. And I mean, like, I don't know, when I'm in a groove, I like leave my body. I don't know where I go, but I just go somewhere for like a couple hours. So it's really hard to do if I'm hearing like somebody yelling on the phone and somebody's orders messed up, and it's just not going to work for me. So I find like I said, like a park is like a nice medium. And it gets me out of my apartment. I don't really like writing in my apartment that much. I mean, I have during the pandemic, but for the most part, I try not to.
Yeah. I feel like it almost like hinders your imagination a little bit when you're stuck in the same room for
and there's like
so long.
There's my TV, there's internet. I mean, there's just so many things that could distract me. And I don't live in I live in a small Manhattan apartment, so there's not that many places to go to kind of take a break from it. Like my desk is the center of my apartment. So for me to get out of the house is the best. And in wintertime, in normal times, I'll write at the main library, which is like the Ghostbusters library it's famous for. And they have like a quiet room, and it's got like 1,000-foot ceiling. I mean, it's an amazing place to work in. They've just been closed, obviously, for this year. Yeah,
I gotcha. Yeah, that's the thing here is like I'll sit down, at my desk or like in the den or something, and it's quiet. Like my wife's at work, my daughter's, at her grandmother's, and I just sit there and I just go, there's so many things I could be doing right now.
Right.
and I think that ability.
You have a great shelf of books, right behind you. It's so easy to be like, let me just read a Joe Hill book.
Yeah, I'm just like, I mean, I could clean house. I could go work out because we've got like a 3-car garage. So our 3rd car one's just kind of set off for like workout areas. Like I can go work out, go outside and play with the dog. Why am I writing?
Yeah. That's what's so great about being in a park. Like I don't have internet on my computer. I have it on my phone for like research stuff. But I'm not like locked into it. I'm not going to just like go on Facebook or just do anything to kind of suck time away. And I find it's like, it's the best. I mean, I don't know what I would do without it. I don't think I would have written any of my books, honestly.
Yeah. I almost like want to,
yeah.
Right. Yeah. I almost like want to like go back to the old Nokia brick phone just so I don't have internet on my phone, because I feel like if I could just set that aside, then I'd be good. I mean, I feel like I'm pretty tame with like how much I stay on social media and stuff. But I don't know. It's like that mind-numbing task of like, if you're sitting there, say like you're watching a television show or a movie, or you're just kind of like walking around. Like I feel like you're just always staring at it, and I'm like, why can't I just stop?
My goal is to be better. I really want to like not be attached to my phone. I want to put it down. I want to use it only for like business and stuff like that, and that's it. But it's easier said than done. I think, coming out of COVID, when we're actually like have plans and doing things again, it will be easier. We've just had nothing to do for a year. So like, you might as well just be on your phone all day. Like it was a way of just connecting with people also. Yeah. So it was necessary. But yeah, I think, me and the phone need a break.
We need to part ways. We need to go separate ways for a little while.
For a while. That social media, a lot of things, and I'm going to need a break for after. Yeah, definitely. I want to like, travel and just experience life again.
Right. Yeah, I feel like, like this summer, like once my wife's done with the school year, I feel like I'm just gonna be like, okay, I think I'm just gonna take like a 3-month break from social media. I'll still do like my book reviews and stuff, but I think I don't know, like I feel like I just get sucked into Twitter. I mean, and it's good in ways because we're in like a part of this book community and everybody's so great and it's awesome to talk about books, but I'm like, at some point you just kind of get worn out. Yeah, but you still find yourself doing it.
Sure, and it's a lot, and I feel like also I know so many writers, and I want to congratulate everybody has so many great things. So it's like every day I'm like, congrats. Like I'm so excited for you, and it's great, but it could be a little exhausting sometimes too. Like so, I think I might do the same. I mean, I have books coming out, so I have to do social media for that. But maybe in the summer I could have a little break from it. And I mean, I know people who've used the pandemic to just get off it completely, and for the better, I'm sure. I mean, I'm sure they're
good for them.
Yeah. I'm sure they're completely happier in life. And, there's like a toxicity on it as well. It's like you post something and everybody yells and opinions, and it's just become like exhausting.
Yeah. Yeah, it really has. I mean, in not just within like certain circles. I mean, it's all over the place. And every time you go on, you're like, okay, good stuff, good stuff. Oh gosh, that makes me not want to get on social media ever again. And
Yeah,
you find yourself back there 10 minutes later.
And there's definitely people I've like hidden forever. Like they basically don't exist anymore because like I can't with like conspiracy theory. It's like goodbye.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's one thing I do like about Twitter is that you can select certain words that you can just do away with. It makes the timeline so much nicer, but stuff still gradually finds its way in.
Oh, of course.
So maybe I just got to get better about putting those keywords in.
Being a little more selective in terms of a few people that like.
Right. So let's talk a little bit about your writing process because I'm sure it's evolved over the years.
Mm-hmm.
So I know you say you go to the park and write and so forth, but how is it kind of are you a plotter? Are you a pantser? How's it maybe evolved since you were writing in your younger days until maybe your debut came out until now?
It's totally changed. I used to be a pantser completely. My first book, and I think it's why my first book took so long to write because I had no idea where it was going, and I put it down for years and picked it up again. And now I 100% outline plot, and I'll usually do like a chapter by chapter outline where it's like a paragraph per chapter, and then I at least have like a home base every day where I'm like, okay, this is what I'm working on. And around halfway through the outline, I'll start to maybe veer a little bit, and I'll allow myself to do that. But I at least feel like every day I know what I'm going to be working on. And it allows me to write a book now in like 6 months as opposed to years. It's definitely changed it. So yeah, complete 180.
Yeah, I can imagine. I find myself like sitting down, like I've got a great idea, and so I start writing or typing. I don't freehand.
Yeah.
do you freehand or do you type everything?
Like notes here and there, but even now I have a note app on my phone and I'll type them. I used to actually this dates me too, but I used to call my like voicemail before like apps like that, and I would leave myself messages. Sometimes I'd be like drunk or like high or something, and I would like for a plot, and half the time they'd be really good. So now it just moves over to like me on my notepad app. Yeah.
I gotcha. Yeah, because I find myself, I've got the idea, so I go ahead. And, usually it's at like 2 a.m. I'll have a great idea and just wake up and just start typing on my phone, and I'll send it, and I go, okay, this sounds great. Now where do I go?
Yeah.
Because I don't do that. I don't have like a chapter outline or this is how it ends. Okay, now I got to find everything in the middle. I just have like a really great beginnings and then just nothing.
You just got to get that middle.
Yeah. I just have to get everything else.
The denouement, the climax, you just all those things, and the last sentence, and then you're good to go.
I feel like an episode 1 of a season.
Right. Maybe work to write like a pilot episode. That's all you have sometimes to sell a show, and then you can go from there. Yeah, it's so interesting how so many different writers do it so differently. Oftentimes I'll let an idea marinate for a while, and sometimes it could be like for a year, or it just like kind of sits in the back of my head. The characters form. I'll never just like idea outline. So usually it's stuff that's been like percolating for a while. But I just had an idea for a book. It's kind of like it would be like Mad Men, but from like a Jewish perspective. So it'd be like Mad Men meets Philip Roth, very literary. And the idea was just like boom. And I was just bored the other day, and it was crappy weather, and I just sat down and like the whole thing just downloaded. I mean, it was really weird. It was just like, and then I had like 10 pages of a whole idea from start to finish with characters and everything. So it's so weird for me. Like The Ancestor was in my head, I don't know, 2 years before I sat down to write it. So I think it just all depends. It's like my mood.
Yeah. I feel like you either had the whole idea, or you just have like a piece of it, and it just sits there and sits there and sits there. And some authors, say that it takes 5, 10, 15 years.
I mean, Orange City has been a 20-year process, literally. It was a short story I wrote in college. Then it was a screenplay. Then it was a different short story. Then it just has been something, for whatever reason, has been like the book that through all my other books, I've put down and picked up and put down and picked up. And I think it's really because I think sci-fi is the hardest genre to write. You're literally creating a new world. and I'm not a master at it yet. So like, I think a lot of it was me really like learning how to create a world and a believable world, you know. And if it took that long, it took that long. I hope, I mean, I have ideas for the sequel. I hope the sequel does not take me that long too. But I don't think so. I think now that the world's created, you know, it'll come more naturally.
I gotcha. So tell me a little bit about Fringe, like how it started and what's it all about.
Yeah, so Fringe is on hold right now. We were gonna launch during the pandemic, obviously before the pandemic, and that's kind of put everything on hold right now. And I have 4 releases coming out this year, so I just can't. So right now it's kind of on indefinite hold. But it's something that's definitely going to happen, and it's basically for books on the fringe. So it'd be like books that would be out there that maybe a traditional publisher would be like, I don't know how we would market this, but in all honesty, should market it and probably would do well if they did market it. So I like to think I love David Lynch, so I feel like if David Lynch wrote novels, those are fringe books, basically. And I have some. I'm moving in a screenwriting direction, so I have some film connections. So my goal would be for every book to ultimately find a path to producers and film or TV or something like that. So the books I'm looking to acquire when it starts up again, maybe next year, we'll all have kind of that in mind. I don't want to take books that wouldn't follow that Hollywood path.
I gotcha. That's really interesting. Yeah, because you think okay, they weren't traditionally published, so maybe somebody would self-publish it and try to market it themselves, which I know there are a lot of authors that are great at it. There are a lot of authors that are just like, this is the worst thing ever. Yeah. I hate marketing on social media. But that's a really interesting thing. I don't think I've ever heard of anybody taking kind of that approach with publishing.
I have the mindset, especially in publishing, and things are changing so much right now. Anything new is good. I've heard of somewhat other companies doing somewhat similar things that are starting right now. There's a company, Neotext, that it's all ebook, but it all is getting fed to producers and etc. I was working for a while with these guys. They run a screenplay competition series, Pipeline Media. So I always have a connection with them where I could be like, here's a book to pass along. Is there anybody looking for this right now? And my goal also, I would like to make money in life, and there's not that much money in publishing. So my goal is really is moving all my stuff. I'm writing scripts for all my books and trying to get them developed right now. So I want to do the same for other people.
What do you mean there's no money in publishing? There's so much money. Doesn't everybody know that every author makes a ton of money when they sell a book?
Yeah, I mean, people really think that, and there's decent money. Like my book, The Mentor, the one that there somewhere up there, that way. Yeah, that was with St. Martin's Press. It came out in France. It came out in Slovakia. So there was all this extra money connected to it. But my other books have been with indie presses. It's very, very hard to get the foreign interest, to get film interest with it. And oftentimes there's no advance. You wind up getting better. Here's sort of a publishing tip. You wind up getting better royalties. So when the book sells, and if it sells well, you can make more money on the back end. Traditional publisher, a big publisher, you're sometimes getting 10 to 15% of royalties. So they're taking everything from you. So it all depends. But unless you're an A-list author, you're not living in a mansion. There's no way. But if you're a screenwriter and it sells, now you're really talking actual money. So it has sort of changed my mindset in terms of what I want to do. And I always want to see a book as a beginning. Like, a book shouldn't be the end. A book could become a video game series. It could become, a TV, film, a play, a graphic novel. There's so many avenues now to just think of it as like, I wrote a novel. I'm never thinking that way anymore.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, what's the series on Netflix right now that's so popular? The one about chess. I just completely blanked.
Yeah.
Queen's Gambit. Isn't it becoming a play now?
It is. I just saw that today. And it's interesting. That's a book that's 50 years old. It's been literally in development for that long, and it's the tenacity of, I think it was Scott Frank. I believe it's Scott Frank. the producer who ultimately made it happen. It might be a different Scott. But anyway, a really huge, amazing producer was the one that made it happen. And look, it's so popular. Yeah, it's going to become a play. Who knows what else it could become? Maybe they'll make a movie series out of it. Her life continues after that, from the last scene. And it was so brilliant and so well done that, yeah, why not? That would be a great graphic novel too. Like, fun.
Yeah, and I don't know if you saw the stuff circulating, which I mean, I feel like it's an annual thing, but maybe it was more so this year about the whole like 30 years posts that everything should be free market and available to everybody, and that's just another example of like, no, I mean, stuff can sell later on. I mean, you can have a book that's 30, 40, 50 years old that all of a sudden becomes a movie and everybody's going out and buying the book. You get a brand new cover and all this other stuff that releases. So I'm like, what is no? the answer is simply no.
The public domain, like 100 years, so, like Dracula, for example, you don't have to pay Bram Stoker's family to utilize Dracula, obviously,
right.
200 years old almost. But yeah, 30 years is way too young. It shouldn't be in your lifetime. I feel like that's how it should be, because Walter Tevis is, I don't know if his family, but like they're making a lot of money off of this, as they should. I mean, it should go to them. He wrote it.
Right.
So yeah, I think that's ludicrous. Like I hope if I don't sell one of my books and 20 years from now somebody wants to buy it, they do.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I feel like maybe like a generation or two, and then there's a cutoff point. Because at that point you're like, who was my great grandfather? Kind of thing. But
like, I feel like something. It's still the author that created it. Like, they should get something for it.
Yeah.
Sometimes authors, like, we're treated like crap. We really are. Like, we are without us, it doesn't exist. The creation doesn't exist. And so I like that, especially in Hollywood now. Hollywood is like chomping at the bit for novelists. They're like, gimme, 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 because it's like we know how to create a long series, basically. So we're in demand, and it's time. I mean, it's long overdue, I think.
Yeah, and I wish they would stop remaking stuff, because there is so much good stuff out there. I mean, you've got original stuff like Bird Box by Josh Malerman. You've got the Expanse series, and Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so much out there that you can make series of. Now, don't get me wrong. There are several books that it's hard to wrap your mind around how you're going to make a movie or a series, based off of it. But there's so much out there that you're like, do we really need a 50th Predator movie or Alien movie? I mean, granted, there are still books being made. I mean, Alex White just released a new book in the Alien franchise a week or two ago.
Okay.
But I feel like stuff that was made 20 years ago, does it really need to be remade now, or can we just like come up with something?
Terminator's the perfect example. Terminator 2 of all movies is my favorite movie, like hands down. It's just literally perfect. Terminator 1, amazing. And then after that, each one gets worse and worse and worse and worse. And the last one was like a garbage fire. I mean, it was pointless. So like, that's a thing that needs to end. But I think I just read it's becoming like an animated series now. I'm like, okay, maybe like move it to that and like leave it. But like, there should be no more Terminator movies. The dead horse has been beaten.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, I get that, like, they realize there's money in this, so we're going to make money in it. But I feel like at some point there's going to be a scale to where like the money you invest in making it, you're just not going to make that money back. And you're like, okay, maybe it's time to kill it.
Yeah, I feel like that's happened with it. I mean, it only makes money in foreign, areas. I mean, I think the last Terminator cost way more than it made in America. And so much is changing now with movies in terms of like what budgets are. More stuff is moving to streaming networks. So like the idea of spending $140 million on the 8th Terminator film that like is not going to make that money and maybe would wind up on Netflix. Like, who's going to invest in that? It's just not the future, like Marvel's going to invest that money, maybe a DC film, like things like that, but not a series from 1984. Like,
Yeah, it's really interesting. The whole dynamic of all this stuff like straight to streaming, like HBO Max has with the Warner Brothers movies this year.
Yeah.
Like, okay, are cinemas still going to be a thing? Are there only going to be like one brand? Is it just going to be AMC and that's going to be all you see? Or will they just completely fold and will everything just be streaming at that point? But
I mean,
because
I saw an interview. This was years ago with Steven Spielberg, so maybe 5-7 years ago, and he was like, "Only giant movies will wind up being in the theater, and then that's it. And you'll pay like $30 to go see that Marvel film or whatever, and everything else really will be on streaming." And this year, in all honesty, it's like I love movies and I go to movies a lot. I've watched so many movies this year, and it's not the thing I'm missing going to. I miss so many other things more because I have a giant TV and I could just watch it in the comfort of my home. Like I'm split. Like a movie like The Matrix is coming out, on HBO Max. Yeah, that probably would be better on a big screen. But like, am I really crying that much? I don't know. Like, I'm still gonna get to see it, and maybe I would have missed it anyway and just wound up watching it on my TV. A few months later. I'm not sure what the kind of best answer is, but it seems like if I was selling a movie right now, and I have one that's about to kind of start a development process, I would think the best option for it is going to be a streaming network. It's not going to happen if it's not streaming.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, you see like the new King Kong movie. You're like, I would love to see that on a massive screen.
Yeah.
But I'm like, at the same time, I'm like, I can sit in the comfort of my own home and I don't have to worry about anybody else ruining it. And I have my own snacks that I don't have to pay $30 or $40 for.
Movies are a little bit of a pain in the ass. I mean, before COVID, I had an AMC pass, so I think you got to see. It was something crazy. It was like you pay like $20 and you could see 3 movies a week. Yeah. So I started finishing up work early on Fridays, and Friday around like 3, I would pop into a film. And it was great. I loved it because it was like, okay, I finished everything. I would shut my phone off and I would go see a movie for 2 hours. And that was sort of perfect. But beyond that, I never used it. I mean, like it was really only, and for people, they have 1 million kids. Like you're not going to a movie. Like that's insane. So then a platform like Disney Plus comes and you're set. You have everything for kids and you have a few movies for yourself as well, that you want to see too.
Oh, exactly. Yeah. It's going to be interesting to see, maybe the next couple of years if we don't have another massive pandemic and, people are kind of out and about again. What is the film industry going to be like? What's the music industry going to be like? Because, concerts aren't a thing right now. Things are still getting canceled.
Yeah.
Book conventions and Comic-Con and stuff like that. That's still kind of like iffy. So,
yeah.
But you better believe football stadiums are going to be full capacity next year. So.
I mean, here. Basketball just open, so like at 10% capacity you can go to a Knicks game or a Nets game, and I'm actually like, when I get my second dose, I think that's maybe the first thing I'm going to do. I feel like that would be like the safest because there'd be so few people and it'd be so socially distanced, and just to like, I don't know, I don't even care about the Knicks anymore, but just like the thought of doing something is so exciting. Like, besides just seeing friends outdoors, that's it. It's like all of that. Because I've tried to be as safe as possible. And New York's really been amazing. Like people here really have taken it so seriously because we have to. We were like, 10 million people.
Right. Exactly. So let's get back to book talk. So you're the author of a few thrillers like The Desire Card and The Mentor, and then your debut, Slow Down, was a noir/dark satire novel that received some fantastic praise. But I want to know a little bit about each of them, as you're a new author to me and probably several of our listeners. So I want to start with your debut, Slow Down. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Sure. So Slow Down, I like to bill it as a book about horrible people doing horrible things to one another. There's no redeemable characters in the entire book. And it's about this guy who really wants to make it in Hollywood and just does terrible things to climb the ladder. And he falls in with this director who's filming a very avant-garde film. And the director is seeing the guy's crush from high school. So he gets reunited with her, and he sort of falls for the director's wife as well. So slowly he begins to take over the director's life as he begins to take over the movie. And then the question is, well, if he's doing that, should he just get rid of the director completely? So yeah, some dark things happen. But it has a very like noir kind of quality to it. So like there's a character, like a femme fatale character who thinks of herself as like a Barbara Stanwyck kind of character. So it's a real nod to like those old 40s and 50s films, with like kind of a little bit of like, one of my favorite movies is The Player. It has like a little bit of The Player, the Bob Altman film.
Okay. How about The Mentor?
Yeah, so the Mentor was my first at like a big press, and it's about this book editor who's contacted by his favorite professor from college. It's been out for about 10 years, and the guy's writing a novel. He's so excited to read it. Maybe he'll publish it. He reads it. Not only is it the worst thing ever written, but it's like really fucked up and disturbing. And it reminds him of this cold case from when they were at school together and this girl he dated went missing. So he starts to believe that maybe the professor, his mentor, had something to do with this disappearance, and that the book is becoming like a confession, like a true crime confession. And then when he won't publish the book, the professor makes his life a living hell.
All right, so you're 2 for 2 on me right now so far. So
Awesome.
definitely gonna have to pick those up. And then what about the Desire Card?
So the Desire Card is about this company called the Desire Card that promises any wish fulfilled for the right price. And it's a little bit like a monkey's paw. And it follows this guy, Harrison, who's a Wall Street guy who's basically been given everything in his life and treated his liver like garbage and needs a new liver, and finds that it's not that easy. So he contacts this company to get a liver off the black market, and realizes kind of like the mob, once you're in with the company, you're basically there, you have to do everything for them and you're at their whim, and breaking away from them becomes very difficult for him. And it's an international book, so it takes place in India, it takes place here in New York, and it was originally going to be the start of the series. Of a series, and I've written 3 other books, all following the card and different people connected to the card. But I don't want to say too much, but it's not at the right publisher for that, to be completely honest. So I am working with my agent on kind of booting the series, hopefully at a different publisher. Yeah.
I gotcha. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with trying to get it back on maybe like a trademark or something. I know.
Yeah, they just didn't. I don't know. I don't like to speak ill of anybody, but like they didn't have the kind of scope that I wanted for the series for it. And I've written it also as film scripts for a few of the books. So it needs to just have a bigger kind of a publisher behind it. So we'll see. We'll deal with that when it's sort of the right time.
Yeah, absolutely. So Orange City is going to be your first published science fiction novel. So why, I would say the complete genre change, but you've already talked about how The Ancestor was a little sci-fi, but why the genre change to straight sci-fi?
Sort of 2 reasons. I never want to be limited just being like, oh, I'm a thriller writer. I want to write whatever I feel like writing. And there's kind of this feeling in publishing, it's like, stay in your lane. You do this, that's all you could do. And I'm like, F that, like, I want to write a million different things. And like, I have a young adult book coming out too that has no thrills in it. And like, nobody kills each other. Like, it's very sweet, for the most part. And Orange City is just a weird, disturbing sci-fi dystopian. A lot of my books are weird and disturbing. So like, that was a nice, easy progression for me. And because I've been working on the book so long, it kept becoming more sci-fi. So originally it was just about an advertising executive, and he starts to get addicted to the sodas in his ad campaign. And it took place completely in this world. And then slowly, like, all these additions of like, maybe it's a different world kind of got attached to it. And it just made it so much more interesting and better. And I love sci-fi. So I was like, why can't I try it, and see what happens. And now I'm hooked. I want to write many, many more sci-fi books. And I mean, it's a whole new world for me. Like, I'm not hooked in like the conventions like I am in the thriller community. So I'm really looking forward to post-COVID to kind of like put myself out there in the sci-fi community. And I know it's completely different. It's going to be very different than the community. I know that.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of times, and you're right, authors just kind of get bottled, like, okay, you're only a horror writer. Don't you dare try to write fantasy,
Yeah.
But I feel like when you do that and you put an author in a box, you almost make it to where they don't want to try anything new. And,
Yeah.
It really kind of kills their creative process.
I mean, I look at Stephen King as the perfect example. Yeah, when you think of him, you think horror, thriller, but like he's written some beautiful literary books. His book on writing about actual writing is the best in that genre. I mean, for anybody who's a budding writer to pick that up and read it. I'm just reading now. He has a series of hard case crime novels. So I'm just reading Later, which just came out.
It's great.
I love it. I read like 100 pages yesterday. And I think Joyland was the one before it. So, I mean, I know I'm never going to be Stephen King, but he's somebody I'm looking towards as like, I want to try to mimic that career in some way and to be able, he publishes under Richard Bachman.
Richard Bachman. Yeah.
Bachman, yeah. So he's somebody who's just able to kind of publish in so many different ways, and so many of his books are amazing. So like, why not?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, he's got fantasy with Dark Tower. I mean, he's got horror with It and Cujo and so forth. So yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where like maybe it doesn't matter if you get boxed into something. You're like, all right, well, I'm going to try this, and if it's good, great. If it's bad, well, I gave it a shot.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. Like, why not? I mean, Orange City, I own the rights to it from my publisher, so what we're about to do is try to resell it to a bigger publisher. So my goal with this one was to like pick up like reviews and kind of get it noticed, get some good blurbs, and then use that to sell it, because it's such a weird out there book. I think it would have been a tough sell. And having not written sci-fi before, sending it to like an editor at Tor, I think it would have been tough. So I kind of decided to do it this way. And we'll see if it works. If not, and this is its path, then that's this path. I'm not fine with it. I'd rather have it, But if it has to be, it has to be. Like I'm just happy for people to read my books. That's what I care about the most.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like you don't have like a bunch of other ideas in the tank.
Yeah,
I mean, it's not like this is the one book you have all your hopes on.
Which I think is always a smart thing for authors. I think sometimes people work on one book and they're so invested in that book and that's it. And then there's nothing else. I feel like I just put them out, and it's like they all go on different journeys, and each journey the book goes on is the journey it's meant to go on.
Yeah. So Orange City is being called a dynamic mashup of 1984 meets Lost. So tell me, what can we expect from the book?
Yeah, so the book is about a hidden city that may exist in this world, may not. And it's basically a city for either convicts, for outcasts, and it lures all these people who are kind of on the fringe of the outside world, which is what they call it, to come to the city and kind of restart their lives. But the problem is you're indebted to the city forever and you can never leave. And the city is ruled by this figure called the Man, who basically resembles like a giant elongated arachnid spider. And he's had all his scientists fashion all these limbs to his body to kind of create this like otherworldly creature. And he monitors all his citizens from an eye-shaped tower. And he's basically a dictator. So the book has a lot of kind of, parallels or similarities to, what we maybe were going through with our own government these last couple of years, or what other, countries are going through with their government and dictatorships. And anybody that feels sort of oppressed, kind of under a thumb, that those are the people in Orange City. Yeah.
Gotcha. So you said this has been, quite a long journey to this point with this book. What was your initial inspiration, and then what, I guess, brought you back full circle to inspire you to actually sit down and write it?
Yeah. It was a short story I wrote my senior year in college. And I don't know, I was very interested in like advertising then. So it was about this guy who worked for an ad company, and he had these new sodas in his ad campaign, and all of a sudden he's so addicted to them and they're like changing his mood. And he uncovers this kind of like minor conspiracy, that, he's basically the guinea pig to test out these sodas. So it had a little bit of kind of a sci-fi aspect to it. And then I was like, well, what if it was in this kind of different world? and then the world just kind of started shaping around it. So the soda's become his sort of awakening into the oppression that he has in his in the city. And it's also kind of a rebuke on advertising. You know, like I think I was watching, it was like a hamburger commercial, and I just went out and bought a hamburger. Like I wanted the hamburger, I saw the hamburger, I bought the hamburger. And just how, I mean, that's on a very easy level, but like how we're addicted to advertising and how much it controls our lives from the bottom to the top. So the book is really about that as well.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. And I see you have it set as the first book in a series with a sequel currently titled Lemon World. So how many books do you actually currently have planned for it?
I think it's only going to be 2, unless, like I said, it sells in a bigger way, and then I'd write as many as they would want. But I see it as sort of, you know, like a 2-book series. Orange City, the city that the next one takes place in is more of like an apocalyptic kind of wasteland. It has more of like a Mad Max feel to it. And then it would also deal with the outside world. It was like a terrible war, and that was responsible for kind of the city being created and siphoning off a lot of the prisoners to kind of get them off of away from the country. So all of that would kind of be wrapped up. I don't really see it being more than a 2-book series if I'm doing it this way. And just like the Orange City would have like a bright orange cover, Lemon World would have like a bright like yellow lemon cover.
And then if you decide to do a third one, it's going to have a bright green color. It's going to be called Lime something.
If there was a third one, it would be, I had an idea for a title that was a city born blue, and that would take place in the outside world. So maybe I would do it where I would write both books and then just split it in half. Like if it was like a 500-page, 600-page book. So, you know, there's the problem is I have other books that are due. That I'm on deadline for it, so I don't know when I'm going to write it. It'll have to be, you know, sometime in the future. Yeah.
so sometime when you're actually able to get out and about.
Yeah, the outline is done.
So last thing, so tell me about your YA debut, Runaway Train.
Sure. So I'm really excited for this book. I think it was one of the most fun books that I've ever written. I was a teenager in the 90s. So I had no idea what it would be like to be a teenager now, and I wanted to try my hand at a YA novel. And so I was like, let me just set it in the 1990s where I actually experienced it. Although it's through the eyes of a 16-year-old girl, so that's sort of the difference. And it starts off very sad. Her sister dies of a brain aneurysm very suddenly, and it just sends her on this kind of like bad path. You know, she gets involved in drinking and drugs, and you know, playing hooky from school with her friends. And she's always wanted to be a grunge singer. That, you know, her idol is Kurt Cobain, and so she decides for her own health and sanity, she needs to just kind of break away from this life that she's in and go drive up the LA coast up to Seattle and meet Kurt Cobain and see what's going to happen. And each chapter is a different grunge song for the mixtape that she makes for her sister who passed. So it's kind of the journey is like a tribute to her sister in a way of getting over the loss, because they were quite close, even though they were very different. Her sister was into like shiny pop and everything. So like it's a way of her teaching her sister about grunge music. Yeah.
I gotcha. And you told me something pretty neat about the title, about Runaway Train. Do you want to go back over that real quick?
Sure. So Runaway Train was a song by Soul Asylum in the early 90s. Great song. And it's the opening quote, and then the quote is used in the book. So it really meant a lot that I had to get the rights. So I was able to get the rights from Soul Asylum's management for a very, very fair price that really surprised me. I thought it was going to be like a lot more, and I was going to spend for it. And, you know, even though I'm working with a publisher, I was like, I'm going to take care of it. It's on me. So yeah, I get to quote the song in it. And I was in contact with his management to get the book. Things kind of stopped a few months ago in terms of that. So I'm not sure, but if I can get the band, the book, that would be great. The Ancestor actually was inspired by this group Darling Side. They're a great indie rock band. And they have a song called Ancestor, and that was the inspiration. And I contacted them, and they were really, really cool and excited. And I sent the book to all the band. And they recently had like a a live session where they played The Ancestor, and I responded on it, and they were like, "Well, how's your ancestor doing?" And I was like, "I'm done." You know, like, so yeah, music's a huge inspiration, and you never know who you might meet writing a book.
Oh, absolutely. Have you thought about doing like a Spotify playlist or anything for Runaway Train?
Yep, I've done it for that, and then the sequel is called Grenade Bouquets, which is the name of the band that the main singer creates. So yeah, I have a Spotify playlist for both. And the book comes out April 29th, so I'm going to share the playlist kind of closer to then to kind of, you know, stoke up interest in it. But yeah, it was a lot of fun to do, and you know, perfect because it wound up being about like 30 songs.
That's awesome. Yeah, I don't know too many people that kind of do the whole like music with the book. The only one I really know of is Nicholas Eames. He wrote a book called Kings of the Wild, and he did a Spotify post a little bit later, but his is like 70s and 80s rock. Okay. And so, you know, it's about these bands that go and play kind of like concerts, but they're basically mercenaries that, you know, are just, you know, defeating these giant monsters and stuff. But cool. It's kind of really neat because I mean, I enjoy music. I don't listen to a whole lot of it anymore because a lot of stuff I listen to is just audiobooks. But it's always neat to have a soundtrack to the book you're reading. And so you can listen to it while you're reading it. It just gives you a much more immersive experience.
I mean, I find like a lot of my books have a natural soundtrack to it, like just music I'm listening. The Ancestor took place in Alaska. It was very like dark and ominous. So I was listening to a lot of like just very quiet, like Bon Iver and Darlingside, that band Seguros. I always mispronounce their name, the Icelandic band. You know, and Runaway Train was complete, you know, there's Nirvana in it. In the second book, the character meets Courtney Love. There's a scene with Courtney Love. So like I was listening to a lot of Hole. And it was just all these bands from my youth that it was really fun to listen to again. And I hope that opens that music up to a whole new generation, you know, that they, especially with Spotify, you just have access to everything. So it's so easy to be like, Hole, okay, let me go listen to some of the songs and check them out. So yeah, I hope it opens that music up to a whole new generation.
That'd be awesome. Last question I got for you. Is there anything you read recently that you'd recommend to the audience?
Yeah. So I was saying I'm reading Later right now by Stephen King. It's really, really good. What else have I read that I really liked? Oh my God, I'm having a brain fart. There's this book, White Ivy, that I really liked. I've heard this book, We Begin at the End by Chris Whitaker, that's getting a lot of press. It's a thriller book. That's really, I've heard is good. So that's on my list. In terms of sci-fi, I don't know. Do you have a recommendation? Is there a book that you've read recently that I could pick up that's sci-fi?
Sci-fi.
I'm a huge fan of Joe Hill too, so like I'm reading his whole catalog.
Okay, it's not one I've read recently, but Children of Time by Adrian Tchaikovsky is a phenomenal sci-fi novel.
Yeah. That's on my list. And Expanse, the series, which also came from books. That's good to watch.
Yeah, I still need to get to that entire series, and I still need to watch the entire series. I've seen the first season, but man, it's like since the kid got here, it's like no TV. It's just all reading. So
there's a dystopian book, Clara and the Sun, that just came out. It was just the front page of the New York Times book review by Ishiguro. That's supposed to be great. So I just ordered that from Amazon today. So that I'm sure it's going to be good. I can already recommend it. It's not going to be bad. Yeah.
There you go. Well, fantastic. Well, Lee, I really appreciate you coming on today and chatting, and definitely looking forward to Orange City, which hits shelves next a week from now. So definitely make sure to go check it out. And I think it's currently up for like $1.99 pre-order for ebook.
So it's the paperback's more, but I'm keeping the Kindle price at $1.99 forever. So I think Kindle books should always be as cheap as possible. Just get them into people's devices. So yep, for $1.99. What's $1.99? Yeah, you can buy it.
Absolutely. Well, we're definitely looking forward to it. I appreciate you coming on, and definitely looking forward to what you got coming up, especially Runaway Train. I'll definitely check it out in the Spotify playlist when you post that. And yeah, we'll try to do this again.
Absolutely. I would love to be on again. And thanks so much for having me. And I hope you have a great day.
Absolutely. You do the same.